I was raped as a child. For 24 years, I stayed silent and angry. Prior to the rape, I was a top student, held as a role model for other daughters in the community, full of self-confidence. But my rapist took all that away from me. He made me feel dirty, stupid, inferior, and I didn't tell my story to anyone for 24 years. But when the Anglophone crisis hit Cameroon and towns were flooded with young IDPs who escaped the terrible violence in their communities, I couldn't stay silent any longer. These young girls were homeless, powerless, and tired, and they were being victimized by men who took advantage of their vulnerability. In telling my story publicly, I not only found healing for myself, I found myself a mentor for so many other women who had suffered similar experiences. The organization I founded and currently run, Rescue Women Cameroon, addresses many forms of violence and injustices against women. Recently, child rape has been skyrocketing, and even infants and toddlers are victims. So, my volunteers and I planned our first Girls Against Rape camp. But children find it difficult to fight rape. We are organizing this program for these little children to enable them understand what rape is all about, how they can identify a rapist, how they can stop a rapist from coming towards them, and how they can speak out when they are survivors of rape. To create an atmosphere of trust, we decided to revive our traditional culture by introducing Cameroonian sports, games, and songs that are unknown amongst younger generations. This created a fun environment, developed team spirit, and put the children in a relaxed state that fostered learning and sharing. During the education portion of the camp, we had survivors, experts, and social workers instructing and guiding discussions with the goal of protecting girls from rape. The children were amazed when I told my own child rape story, and this broke down the barriers of shame that so many victims carry. One teenage girl told me that she had been raped by a cousin at age 5 and hadn't told anyone. Importantly, we made sure what we were doing was broadcasted on local TV and radio, so we could impact a much larger audience. Kumba was bustling with excitement over our camp. Everyone was talking about it, men and women both, and it left the Kumba population in awe. Our country has been so indoctrinated by a culture of gender-based violence that boys grow into men, honestly believing that violence against women is not only their right, but their obligation. Talking openly in the broader community about this taboo subject and the legal rights of women is creating a real stir, and we believe it will impact the views that men and boys have about gender-based violence and influence their behavior. The biggest surprise for me was that the older girls at our camp eagerly asked if they could start Girls Against Rape clubs at their schools so they could share the teachings with other girls. I did not see that coming. These clubs will not only extend the lessons to more school children, but they will create ongoing supportive social groups so girls will not need to navigate the dangers of childhood alone. Already, child rape victims are approaching our camp participants for help, and our children even stopped a potential gang rape of a 9-year-old by quickly reaching out to us for help. Another 7-year-old informed us of a classmate who was being raped, so we could intervene.
One of my friends has been raped at school. She's in class 2. She's 7 years old. And we are the first person that she's done. She started crying, and I told her everything that is not her fault.
What particularly delighted us was the reaction of Kumba parents who learned about the camp over the TV and radio. These parents expressed their anger to us, anger that their own daughters hadn't been included in our camp. We could see we needed to do more of these camps. And Your Together Women Rights Grant will allow us to do just that.
So much has changed since 2015 when we first got our Dining for Women grant. We were really small back then. We just had a couple of rooms in our center, and we now are on multiple floors over 2 buildings, and we have a staff of around 30 people from the local community. What was so great about the Dining for Women funding was that it allowed us to do our very first program. It allowed us to begin training women on women's leadership principles and women's rights and human rights in general. We started with just a small group of women who had demonstrated leadership skills in our community, and we trained them actively over an extended period of time, and then they became facilitators to begin expanding that training to larger numbers of women.
طرأ التغيير على حالتي النفسية، إنه أنا كنت دائما منفعلة، دائما عصبية. فدخولي هذه الدورة حسيت بتغيير جدا كبير، إنه خاصة على عائلتي، على المجتمع، التعامل مع الناس من حولي، خلاني أقدر إنه أثبت وجودي، إنه أتمكن، إنه أكتشف من قدراتي، إنه أقدر أساعد نفسي وعائلتي، إنه أكون أكثر قوية بالمجتمع، خاصة كوني امرأة وبمجتمع عربي مثل مجتمعنا.
That work is still continuing today, and those very first training workshops that we held are now a core part of our programming. We've been able to expand to do much more through advocacy activities, as well as income generation, but also really focusing on girls. CRP is really unique in Jordan because we're one of the only organizations to be working on gender-based violence with men and boys. And this is really something that grew out of our work with Dining for Women. What's different now is that we have a real need to be able to bring on quality middle management that can ensure that this core programming will be able to be maintained and will be able to continue to grow and expand and serve more people. The other big challenge is that the crisis really isn't over. The media has moved on from the Syria crisis, but it's definitely not over. We have more challenges than we've ever had as funding has moved on and as new groups like Yemenis move into Jordan and are desperate to receive help. We're just so grateful to Dining for Women for providing us funds to make sure that we're able to keep doing this really important work.